Hello and welcome to Aliens Revealed Live. I'm your host, Dean Caparella, here on the Paranormal UK radio network. From alien abductions to monster-infested ranches to men in black, near-death experiences, close encounter experiences and more, we speak to some of the most amazing people on the planet, ready and willing to share their chilling stories with you. And they all come from the Aliens Revealed Live files here on the Paranormal UK radio network. Well, I was looking at a map recently of alien abduction hotspots in the United States. Several areas stood out, including Central and South Florida, Southern and Central California, and both the Pacific Northwest and the Northeast. But one town in particular caught my attention. It's called Middleton and is nestled in the top half of Massachusetts. It's just outside the infamous Bridgewater Triangle Zone and has a population of under 10,000. The incidence of people being taken by aliens there over several decades is high, and while Middleton probably hasn't gained the publicity it should have because of its alien activity, another town, 3 hours west, has, and that town is called Sheffield, home of the famous 1969 UFO encounter which saw a young Tom Reed taken from a car driven by his mother by insect-like aliens before being returned. And then there is the abduction of Betty Andreessen in 1967 by grey aliens in South Ashburnham, which seemed a benevolent experience. South Ashburnham is about an hour west of Middleton. In fact, Andreessen was given the meaning of life by her alien captors, who then erased her memory, and she later recalled what took place under regression therapy. The Bridgewater Triangle area is a famous UFO area in the northeast of the United States, and which Middleton is just south of. Former resident Robert Emerson has little doubt that Middleton is an alien abduction hotspot, but he's not convinced it's being targeted, and that really hasn't been determined. Emerson is a hypnotist and works with people who have had abduction and paranormal experiences, and he's going to give us a little background to the Middleton abduction phenomena. He joins us now. Hi, Robert. Welcome to the program.
How you doing?
I'm pretty good.
All right.
Well, let's talk firstly about your former hometown of Middleton. I took a quick look when you said it was in Massachusetts to see where it was in relation to the Bridgewater Triangle area, which is actually south of Middleton, but it's an area that's a real hotbed for paranormal and UFO type events, but Middleton is just outside that area. So tell us a bit about the early days of Middleton.
Okay, well, when this was back in the 60s and actually through the 70s, and the first thing you need to understand is nobody talked about it. That's number one. Mm-hmm. Now, an example. On my street alone, there was a ton of activity. Nobody talked about it. My mother was coming home with groceries on River Street in South Middleton, where I lived, and she saw this vessel on the ground in a cow pasture. There's more cows there than people. In a cow pasture. She thought it was something for watering the cows. What does she know, right? She doesn't know about UFOs. What does she know? So she drives past it, then she stops and backs up. And she sees these little beings, half a dozen beings on the ground around it. She still doesn't know what it is. And this is what you need to understand. People don't get it. They don't talk about it. Now, she was afraid to talk about this until she was in her 80s and had some back surgery and was on a medication. And she was able to bring this up. Mm-hmm. I never heard from her my whole life about this. So what I do know from all my experience is if she was that close to a vessel on the ground, she was abducted. That right. I do know.
Right. There was, as I understand, a high rate of abductions just in Middleton alone. Why do you think it was why do you think it was targeted?
Well, I will tell you, it's not targeted. It's of a spiritual nature. And let me just give you a quick synopsis on that one, all right? Your spirit entered your physical body here on Earth at birth. True? You think so?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
That's an average belief. Your physical body is of earth, your spirit is not. Nobody's from here. You are physically from here. Your genetics are from here in your physical body right now. But your spirit's not from here. Okay? So when you say a hotbed, abductions are not by accident. They don't fly from zillions of light years away to see somebody walking down a dirt road and abduct them. They're planned events. Now, I can tell you this from a spiritual perspective. Before you entered your physical body that you exist in right now, you made a deal with those in spirit who would remain in spirit while you were here in your physical body. And they would guide you through your life. But you have to contact them. Seek them and you will find them. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door is open. But you have to find them. And that's through meditation. The truth lies within you. So you have spiritual guides around you that are there to guide you and to help you through your earthly sojourn, which is not an easy thing because our emotions and our ego cause all kinds of problems for us. Meditation is a way of laying aside emotions and ego. Well, you made a deal with extraterrestrials too. That's what an abduction is. They're all of a spiritual nature. They don't happen by accident.
Right. I was reading with interest one of your comments in one of the Facebook groups, and it really fascinated me, and that's why I wanted to talk to you. So your conclusion for all this, how do you come up with what you're saying now? I mean, is it something that's been related to you?
It's from inner guidance, from dreams, from I had a mentor in the 70s. Now, do you know who Edgar Casey was?
Yeah.
He was an Edgar Casey guy, globally known. I met him in Mexico. And I knew him until he died. And this man could do the same thing Casey could do. And believe me, that's like seeing a UFO all by itself when you see what these guys could do. But what he did was he laid a foundation for me to gain a greater understanding of life. And there's no way I could have gotten that anywhere else. Right.
You mentioned you had an abduction experience yourself back in 1967?
Yeah, I had, well, I'm sure I was abducted in Middleton because all my friends were too. Let me just go on to that a little second. How long is this, by the way?
We've got plenty of time.
Okay, because there's a lot of stuff. See, back then, like one friend of mine, when we were young teenagers, we were 13 years old, was telling me he was taken off the planet, and it scared the hell out of him. At the time, I just thought maybe he had a nightmare or something. But see, now I know better. I had another friend of mine that was working nights on, these are all River Street experiences, by the way, that was working on River Street at a wholesale greenhouse. And he worked there late one night on a Saturday night. So me and my friends stopped by to see him. And he said to me, like, thank God you're here. I could have swore I saw a UFO land in the swamp out there. And of course, see, at the time we're going, yeah, right. But see, looking back on it now, looking back on what happened there, can you imagine if there was someone you knew really well, and let's say they're 15 years old, and they said to you, I could swear I saw a UFO land in that swamp. With our intelligence today, I'd be all questions.
For sure.
What do you mean? What did it look like? Did you hear any sound? Right? But see, back then we just wrote it off. And lots of stuff like that just got wrote off. People didn't talk about it. Now, what I did in Middleton, and we'll get to my abduction, what I did in Middleton was there's a site called Remember in Middleton. And it's for all the people that grew up there. And we're talking about the ice cream stand and the drive-in theater. That's what they talk about on this site. Well, I put a post on there. Does anybody remember having a UFO experience? I got flooded with people I know. I got all kinds of people telling me, oh, God, I saw one across the street. And, I got not something, this is not way up in the sky and it could be the space station or some twinkling star. This is up close, down and dirty. I got a lot of feedback from them. Now, on my street, MUFON did a 5-page article on this family called the Goulds, who were a neighbor of mine. I never knew they did that. They did that in the 60s. And because this guy, I didn't even know who MUFON was. But I have the article. And they talked about him having multiple visitations. It's 5 pages long.
Right.
2 different types of vessels. And, looking, you can see all this. See, back in the 60s, nobody talked about this.
No.
See? Today, with today's mind, I'd be over there knocking on his door, like, what's up? What happened?
Yeah.
So that's that. And all the activity. My father and my sister saw one right across the street from our house at treetop level. My little sister used to go with her friends alien hunting. I didn't know that. Nobody said a word. Nobody said anything about it. But now I talk to my sister. She goes, "Oh yeah, we used to go alien hunting." See.
So other than MUFON, did any of the other media outlets take an interest in what was going on there?
No, nobody did. Back in the 60s? No, hell no. All they had then was the Bonnie and Betty, whatever it was.
Yeah, Betty and Barney Hill.
Yeah, which wasn't far from where I live.
And that was within that Bridgewater Triangle area.
Yeah. And my abduction was the same as theirs, I found out.
Yeah. I kind of figured, because Salem's not far from you guys.
Oh, Salem! one of my relatives was hung as a Salem witch. I had a business in Salem for 30 years, so I'm a Salem guy, really. But don't forget about that. That has nothing to do with anything. This is all about spiritual evolvement, not about hanging witches, which is not spiritual evolvement.
Yeah.
So, there's
I was just going to ask. I just want to ask, Robert.
On my street alone.
Yep. I just want to ask, with your particular experience, can you remember anything about it?
No. And this is really interesting, okay? Because, let me tell you about, I know I was abducted in Middleton. I can't remember that at all. And that's normal, by the way. As a hypnotist, I owned a factory in my life. Hypnosis was something I did on the side, but I was so busy with it. I did it for nothing. It was free. I still do it over the phone with people all over the world now that call me about abduction things, and I put them over the phone, and we revisit it. I've been doing this a long time. But most people that came to me as a hypnotist, and I had a reputation for working with people who had abduction experiences or paranormal events, they came to me with a paranormal event. They were driving home the same way they always drive home, and it took them an hour and a half later to get there, and there was no traffic. Scares the hell out of them. They don't want to talk about it for maybe a year or 2 years. Curiosity finally comes up. They feel a little safer. And of course, I tell them right away, you had an event. People that remember all these details, I don't trust. I don't trust them.
Okay.
This event is too mind-blowing. It takes you to another etherical state of mind. That's why nobody takes pictures. You don't take it. The last thing in your mind when you go through this is to take a photograph. You know what I mean? You don't think about filming anything or photographing anything. It's not even a thought in your mind. So, one quick thing. I know I'm rambling, but we're covering things here. I had a friend of mine. This is really interesting. I had a friend of mine that was a scientist. He worked for Sylvania in their R&D. This guy's got his feet on the ground. So I dated his daughter, and I used to play cards cribbage with him on Saturdays. Well, he finally wanted to try my hypnosis thing. He's a scientist, Well, he goes under like you wouldn't believe. Now, I got to tell you something else that I've done since the 70s. I have regressed people into previous lives.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen some of my own. It's all part of the same bigger picture of your spirit entering your physical body over and over again to overcome aspects of self, to learn to be a loving being. The greatest aspiration in the universe is to learn to be a loving being. Now, so his daughter comes home. Now, she's in high school, 10th grade, just got her license. She drove home from Topsfield, a 15-minute drive. She gets home, it's dark out. And he was mad because he didn't want her driving at night because she just got her license. She calls up her girlfriend's house, and the mother says, oh, she went to bed an hour ago. Paranormal event, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know right away what happened. I know it. So I put her under, although this was like a year or so later. You see, people are a little leery of all this. Let me tell you how this played out. Put her under. She's driving by our swimming hole in Middleton, and there's a vessel at treetop level. She sees. Next thing you know, there's a being from beyond. Now, I got to tell you, Greys, reptilians, we didn't deal with that. They were just extraterrestrials to us. We weren't separating them into groups. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Nobody was doing that back in the 60s. But there's a being from beyond standing in front of her. Now, they communicate telepathically. All right? And I've done that. That can be done. It's no big deal. It's just to crack it from a conscious level, you really kind of can't. You've got to get on an unconscious level, into your subconscious. And this being from beyond is telling her it's not time, which I thought was interesting because why would they go through all that? But that's what he was telling her. She's in the 10th grade now. This is the effect it had on her. Before the event, she was very extroverted. After the event, she became introverted.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you can't believe your own eyes, what can you believe?
Right.
See?
As a hypnotist and with all the people that you've seen, is there one or two that stand out from the others?
There was one was very interesting. I just thought of there was a woman coming. There's a highway called Route 128 in that area, and her and a girlfriend of hers, and they're in their 40s. Were coming back from some little convention thing that they go to every year. And normally it takes them, however much time it is, and they get to stop at this place in Danvers, the next town to Middleton, and have a cupcake and some coffee and stuff like that. Well, they get there, the place is closed. Paranormal event again. I already know what's going to happen. I already know. They don't remember anything. Driving the same road every year, the same way. They get to the place, it's closed. It's midnight. They always arrive around 10:30. So I hypnotized them both separately because I wanted to see, if the stories jived. So they're driving on 128, talking to each other's. The passenger of the car turns and sees this alien being sitting in the back seat of the car and screams.
Wow. Huh.
Isn't that something?
Mm-hmm.
See, they can do anything. People think, well, they're going to threaten the world. If they wanted the world, they just take it. They can hypnotize the world. And believe me, hypnosis works.
Right.
Quickly on that. People say, well, you can't make someone do something they wouldn't do. What if I hypnotize you and I tell you there's a rope over there in the corner? I want you to go pick it up. You'd pick up a rope, right? It's not a rope. It's a viper snake. You see a rope. You pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
Understand hypnosis? You see what I want you to see. So in any case, the woman driving the car, and you got to be careful because you don't want to lead anybody. I'm just asking them what happened next. They're driving in the car. I say to her, what happened next? What happens next? Well, we were talking about this. What happens next? So then I worked with the driver, and I asked her, What happens next? She said, my girlfriend screamed, and I looked in the back seat and I screamed. So they were pulled over. They were abducted, taken on board a vessel. I have a better understanding now that it's more of a spiritual thing. It's not all this probing, and people come out with these stories about all these crazy things that they're doing. There's just so many crazy stories out there. It's just amazing. So at the time, even I don't have a really full. I was doing previous life regressions, and I came across hypnosis, people with abduction experiences. I was teaching people to meditate and contact their spiritual guides, which I do. So they now have intercommunication and guidance in their life.
Mm-hmm.
In a sense, you're following your gut, but you're actually talking to your higher self and getting information. You can call it your higher self, your spiritual guides, your guardian angels, call it what you want. The truth lies within you and the guidance is there. So let me get back now to, because I've had so many, I was working with a woman the other day from I forget somewhere in the country, because people call me, I do it over the phone. She remembered an incident at 5 years old. She was at her grandmother's house and she saw this. She didn't know it was a vessel. She didn't know 5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
What does she know? Saw this thing in the air, but knew something was wrong. The childhood little intuition is something's wrong with this one. This ain't right. But didn't think much more of that about it. And I had met her online. I said, well, call me on the phone, we'll talk. I put her under. She was abducted at that time. The whole thing was a spiritual event for her. She was abducted 2 or 3 more times. She didn't remember. Once when she was in college. She has been abducted in her previous lives, because now I showed her how to get into her previous lives. She's doing it on her. See, when I teach somebody something, they can do it on their own, so they don't need me. I don't need people hanging all over me, So, see, this goes back into previous lives. You've got to get the bigger picture of what's going on.
Well, I just want to ask you there, like you say that they're not taken aboard and they're not probed, and so what happens when they get aboard? Well,
no, they're taken on board, but from what I've seen, there might be some things that they do. I think in some cases they actually heal something that's wrong with them. They're not a negative influence. It's a positive thing. Guidance, help. Most people that I've worked with, almost all of them, there's no fear. Even, the 2 in the car were kind of freaked out, but afterwards there was no fear. There's no fear. A woman I'll give an example. A woman that I worked with from Seattle, public figure, can't tell anybody anything. Her father was being abducted. Her father would actually bring her to them when she was very, very young. And they were with her for a number of years. And they told her all about her life, where she was going to be going, and very helpful. And she said, everything they told me came true. She's a CEO of her own company. She's an author. She became all these different things, but she can't talk about this stuff. I've talked with physicists from Oxford, from MIT. They can't talk about this stuff. They're tenured, but they believe in it. Not all, but I'll tell you, on the higher levels, they do. They understand how their vessels operate using gravity. Gravity's throughout the universe. Even we use gravity. We'll slingshot a satellite around a planet, speed it up. Mm-hmm. Things they use gravity in a different way. Yeah, but it's interesting that talking to someone over there at Oxford and talking to somebody here, they had the same ideas about using gravity, and that's how they operate, and that's why they don't make a sound, and they just sit there in the air like a bubble. So let me talk about my abduction experience, okay?
Okay.
When you get back on the ground a little, because I tend to wander here and there, but it's all good stuff. It's all things that I've experienced. This is not stuff I read in a book. It's not something I saw in some movie. It's not some video that I saw. I only talk about things that I have experienced. So in Vermont, this is kind of interesting because I'm up there with a friend of mine who I've known since I was 5 years old, forever. We were really tight friends. And we're west of Montpelier, Vermont, driving in the car. We're going up a hill. And we get to the top of the hill, and there's a light that is so bright there, I couldn't see the road. All I could see was the inside of the car. This is during the day. So I had to stop. And the next thing I remember is I'm looking over at him, and he's talking to someone, but I can't see. He's a passenger now. If we were pulled over, they'd be talking to the driver. And he's talking to somebody, but I can't see who it is. And I asked him, what are you guys talking about? And then the next thing we remembered is we're driving down the other side of the hill, 5 minutes away, and it's an hour and a half later. We look at each other and say, what was that? Because, we're old buddies, What was that? So we drive back to the top of the hill. There's nothing there. But we lost an hour to an hour and a half of time. What I was going to do this month is I know a hypnotist that's really good at what she does. She hypnotizes women when they go in a hospital to give childbirth with no pain. Then there's no recovery. She's good. And she's open. She's done previous life regressions, so she's open. I was going to make a video, film it, and record it. I'm still going to do that, but this virus came up. This month I was going to do it. I'm finally ready to do it. Of that whole experience, and I mean second by second, because I'm a hypnotist, highly detailed for that whole missing time.
Are we going to get to see it?
Yeah, I'll be posting it on Facebook. What do I care? You know what I mean?
Okay.
Look, I don't make money off this stuff. I've been doing it for nothing for 40 years. I'm trying to help people. This is going to be a visual teaching tool. So people will see what this stuff is all about. And believe me, as a detailed guy, it's not going to be, they took me on the vessel.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be, they walked over to me, and this is what they looked like. And then they took my hand, and we stepped towards and then we get in the vessel. I'm going to do a detailed search. And you know something else I found? When I'm back in that experience, I can communicate with them. It puts you back into that zone.
Right.
Where you can communicate with them. The same way you can communicate with your spiritual guides. They're always looking for radio waves. They don't use radio waves. That's why they're waiting to hear a sound from outer space. The universe is teeming with communication. They don't use radio waves. But anyways, that was that experience. It's taken me up until this year to really desire to get in there and make a teaching tape. Put the whole thing out there. And I told the hypnotist, if I'm screaming and yelling, leave me in there.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because whatever happened, I want it on tape.
Talking about past life regression, do we keep coming back to planet Earth, or do we head elsewhere?
No, you can. One girl I lived with was really, she could go back into a previous life and see the dust on a counter. So I took her. I asked her if she could go to a previous life that was not on this planet. She went to another planet. So she's in a different physical form. Mm-hmm. See, we're one with the universe. They're us, we're them. It's not they're out there and we're here. We're all together. She's on a different planet in a different skin, rougher. So I asked her, what do you guys eat? She said, root-type things. See, on this planet, everything is refined.
Yeah.
But these other planets, not necessarily. People think that these aliens are going to be like, I like to call them extraterrestrials. Alien's not the right word. But we have lungs to breathe oxygen. That doesn't mean they have to breathe anything. They may not even have lungs. I mean, don't try to make something out there like something is here, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
we can't get out of our physical. Well, people can actually project. And in fact, I got to tell you something. I met a guy. I'm going to be getting together with him. He's going to be able to do KC readings.
Wow.
It's going to be a mind job. Because, see, I know about all this stuff. I grew up with a guy like that. And you need to have the ability to clear the mind. I mean, completely clear the mind.
Yeah.
If you can do that, and there's not many people that can do that, I'm going to hook him up. And when I get that going, I'll put him on here in trance, and you can ask questions. He's going to blow your mind. But that's another thing.
Yeah. In your role as a hypnotist, is it more beneficial to have had an abduction experience yourself than not to have had one?
Absolutely. You know why?
In what way?
You know the questions to ask.
Right.
And that's wisdom, my friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you haven't been abducted, you're going to be asking stupid questions. You're probably going to be leading them on. Well, what kind of vessel did they have? Well, who brought that vessel? Unless they did. You are. Yeah. Even when I do a previous life regression, I take somebody back to the entrance of their home.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to live in a cave. Not going to be a door.
Yeah.
You got to be very careful not to lead someone. Now, I'll tell you about some of my previous life things that happened to me. One of them was because a friend of mine lost his business, and there's a bar we used to hang around, and I was in my 20s. He was gone for 6 months. He came back and was talking about guides and previous lives and all that stuff, and I didn't care, but I bought him lunch and dinner. Well, I called him on the phone. I said, look, next day, I should have listened to you. I'll come down. Tell me what you learned. I went there. He regressed me into a previous life. I was on a sailing ship out of New Orleans, slave dealing. We were pulling into New Guinea. At that time, I had no idea where New Guinea was.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where New Guinea is. I had to look that up. And we landed. I was on the front of the ship, the bow of the ship, and big thing with sails and all. We get to New Guinea, all dirt roads. Now you can't think of this quick enough. There's no telephone poles. There's no planes. There's no cars. Dirt roads. There's so much you'd have to. When they make a movie that's a period movie, they spend months building those sets.
Mm-hmm.
So everything in that movie is of that time. But when you go into a previous life, it happens instantaneously. You walk through the door of your home, there can't be anything in there that's that's after 1700s. Nothing. It has to be there instantly. So I go to New Guinea, and I saw this granite structure. It must have been part of a church. And on the top of it, there was like colored glass, the colored glass.
Yeah.
No, that's got to still be there. Well, I saw a woman, and all I saw was her back, and she had red hair. And I came out of that experience with a pain of loss in my stomach for 3 days.
Wow.
So I knew it was real. Another one I had, this is cute. I was sleeping, and a voice came in my head, didn't wake me up, but I could hear. And it said, we are now taking you into a previous life. Can you imagine the stuff that's been around me in my life? Next thing I know, I'm sitting on this stone throne thing. No pillows, stone. Mm-hmm. Not that comfortable. And I'm black as charcoal, man. And I've got this gold jewelry on my arms, and Jesus Christ, it's all over me, man. And I was fit, And I got this girl next to me, and a smaller one, and she's charcoal black, gorgeous, with gold all, black people look fabulous in gold, right? They really showcase it. And she's got gold all over her. And I leaned over to her, and I said what a pain in the ass the white people were. That's all I remember.
Wow.
I since found out the Nubia was Upper Egypt. I know a lot about Egypt. Yeah. Nubia was Upper Egypt. It merged with Lower Egypt. And Nubia, a lot of political figures and pharaohs came out of Nubia. I was not a pharaoh, all right? I'm not trying to be Cleopatra here. But I was an advisor. That's what I was. Now, the girl that I lived with went back to that same lifetime, and she said, you're here, and you're black. See, it all connects. Now, I don't know why they wanted to show me that lifetime, but I'm going to find out. Because there's something there. Why did they show me that one and not other ones?
So there seems to be the common theme now, and I've spoken with other people we've had on this program, and you mentioned earlier, love just seems to be the common theme. So is that what life is all about?
Yeah, hands down, absolutely, in every way. And don't think it's an easy trick, because it's not. If you're here in the physical, you got to clean your act up. Me, you, everybody. I'm no better than you. Maybe I've had some weird experiences. That doesn't mean I'm a better person. We're all working on it. Everybody's on the same path. It's a different path, like all roads lead to Rome. Mm-hmm. Your spirit chooses to enter your physical body here. You are a spiritual being. That's what you are. Your physical body dies easily. What's the one thing everybody's looking for? They're looking for love. What's the last thing someone says when they're dying? I love you. What do you say if someone dies and you didn't get a chance to say goodbye? I wish I had the time to tell them I love them. Not, where's your hidden gold? Not, So
what's the at the end of it all? Then are you assessed on how you performed during your life here on Earth? Or I mean, we hear about. I mean, the Christians talk about confronting God at the end of life and answering to Him. And I mean, is talking about the same thing?
There's no answer. God or Source in the universe loves you no matter if you do right or you do wrong. Now God's out of it. You got free will. God, Force, Source is out of it. Mm-hmm. It's all up to you. Karma is the law of the universe. What you plant is what grows. Now, I'm going to give you a good example of karma, because karma can affect you from a previous life, not just this lifetime. Let's say we have someone in a previous life that's in a dungeon where people are being tortured. And they are told, you must turn that wheel on that rack, which stretches out this wheel. They're enjoying the experience. They're enjoying the experience. Enjoying hearing that people do that sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. Enjoying that pain that they hear. It is no doubt that pain must be met. They're going to meet that pain. They will be born into a physical body that is racked with pain. Hands down. Same situation. They're turning that wheel, and they have compassion and understanding, and they're so sorry that this person is in so much pain. They will be born into a physical body that is the physician that heals those racked in pain. The choice is yours. You have free will. What are you going to do?
Right. So, love, but I mean, we see a lot of oppression in the world. I mean, obviously, that's a no-no.
Well, what did I just tell you about the guy that enjoyed the pain? Mm-hmm. He ends up in a body that's racked with pain.
But I'm talking about people, the actual oppressors themselves. I mean, are they dealt with?
They've done it before.
They have.
Oh, Hitler will come back and have 1,000 lifetimes of a Jew that is oppressed. And you're going to see that Jew that's all oppressed. Mm-hmm. You're going to go, oh, this oppression is bad. Who knows what's good or bad? You get a flat tire driving to work, and it's raining out. And you think, oh, crap, I got a flat tire. What you didn't realize was if you got to that intersection, you were going to be broadsided and killed. Who knows what's good or bad?
Right. And you hear that a lot. You hear people, go through those types of experiences.
Yeah, see, judge the action. Do not judge the person. It took me a long time to learn that, to fully understand that. Don't judge it. Like a mother would say to her child, I love you dearly, but I don't like what you're doing. It's separate.
Okay.
Everybody's on there, and I'm not condoning violence, but this all plays out karmically. This is why this planet is the place to come. If you want to learn to love, this is the place to do it. And what happens is you are karmically locked in here. Because see, once we entered into this physical plane, and basically in the beginning we're with God, and everything's wonderful and beautiful and bliss. But then we wanted, not all things, but we wanted to experience the emotions here on this planet. And once you step on this planet, karma steps in now. Whatever seeds you plant here must be reaped here. Whatever's happened in the flesh must be reaped in the flesh. It has to happen here, whatever you've done. So we have to learn to evolve to be loving again, like we used to be, to get the hell out of here. And it has nothing to do with God. Zero. Or I like to call it source, because God, some people don't like the word God. They've got to let go of that. Mm-hmm. But source. To get back to source, which is pure love. And I got to tell you, love is where it's at. I mean, John Lennon was right. Love is all there is. He wasn't kidding. You think John Lennon was kidding?
No, and you're right.
Serious.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of guests on this program now, and they've gone through a similar nature, and that's the same message they give me. Oh,
absolutely. Let me tell you about reborn. What reborn is, because I went through that recently, which is kind of interesting. Being reborn is not in the Christian or whatever release, you get baptized or whatever. You are reborn when everything you believe in, everything you've learned in your life, you realize is true. When you realize I really am a spiritual being in this physical body, which is temporary. My spirit is who I am. I'm temporarily here. When you realize it's absolutely true, not something you learned, not someone that taught you, not something you read, not some video you saw. When you, in your heart, believe that God exists, this source thing is real, and it's all about love and learning to love. That's reborn. You've taken yourself to a higher level. Doesn't mean that I don't have to learn more. I certainly do. Don't let anybody fool you that they're more evolved than someone else. That's crap. If you're here in the physical, you got to work it out. Mm-hmm. It's just that while I'm working my stuff out, I like to share what I've learned. But my job here is not to be on your program. It's not my job. My job is me. See, it's easy, and a teacher always teaches what they need to learn. And boy, do I understand that now. What they need to learn, because that's what's important to them. Now, do you understand projection?
Mm-hmm.
What is your definition of projection?
You're talking like astral projection?
No, that's just leaving your body. Anybody can do that. A lot of people do it in their dreams. This friend that can clear his mind can leave his body at will. You're not going to believe what that's going to turn into. But no, projection is simply this. And it's a real hard one to get, and it's very, very, very important. It's kind of like the base of all understanding here. Those strengths that you admire in other people are strengths you have, or you'd never see them. They simply wouldn't be there.
Mm-hmm.
If you buy a new car, you'll start seeing that new car everywhere. If a girl gets pregnant, she'll start seeing pregnant girls all over the place. It wasn't that they were never there. It wasn't part of who she was. Once it becomes part of you, you see it. So if you see somebody that has certain strengths, you have those same strengths to the degree that you admire them. And then you have to write down your definition of that strength. Because if I said to you, what's your definition of patience? It would certainly be different than my definition of patience. Mm-hmm. Your definition of it is how you do it. Now, on the other side of that little coin, those things that you dislike in other people are your weaknesses. And you have them to the degree that you dislike them. And how you do them is you got to write down that weakness and then write down your definition of that weakness. I could have 20 people in a room. There's going to be 20 different definitions. That's how you do it. And that's how everybody's definition is how they practice it.
Right.
This is heavy stuff, man.
I'm just trying to wrap my mind around all this, but it's fascinating to talk about, and I'm sure the audience.
You need to have all these perspectives to understand what's going on. You have to understand karma and how it plays out. Your thoughts are real. Every thought is a seed that you're planting. And that seed is going to grow out of that ground, and you're going to have to deal with it. Do you want to deal with a seed of anger or love?
Well, love, obviously.
Then start thinking loving thoughts all the time. And when you don't have a thought in your mind that's loving, drop it.
Okay,
You're all set.
Good piece of advice, because we've just about out of time, Robert. But as I said, great discussion. I'm sure it'll get a lot of tongues wagging,
all I hope is that it helps somebody. That's all I care about.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, I don't charge money. I'm not in this to make money. I'm evolving, and I have to work on myself. I study my dreams. Dreams is another whole thing we could talk about. I can interpret them. I know all about them, and I'm busy interpreting my dreams to get myself straightened out. None of us are perfect.
Yep.
We're all in this together.
Certainly are. Robert, thanks very much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, stay in touch. When in another month or so, I'll put this guy on this thing in trance. He's going to blow your mind. Okay. I'll tell you to write down as many questions as you can think of, and he'll answer every single one of them.
Okay. Look forward to it.
Yeah. Very, very interesting stuff.
That's Robert Emerson. Well, how many alien hybrids are there on this planet? No one really knows the answer to that, but certain people who have worked with them can definitely confirm that they are here. Barbara Lamb co-authored the landmark book Meet the Hybrids with Miguel Medina, which was released in 2015. And it virtually changed the way we look and perceive the alien hybrid topic. Lamb's work in this field is almost legendary.
You know, that's very difficult to say in terms of numbers, but I will say that for me personally, gradually I am meeting more and more people, one by one, who think that they are, and it sounds like they are, ET human hybrids. So I personally know, I would say 16 individuals whom I feel convinced are hybrids. And then that's just me knowing them. And there may be many, many more around the world. And I suspect that there are many more because some of the benevolent beings, we think of them as extraterrestrial beings out there in space on different planets, that some of them are very, very concerned about planet Earth and concerned about humanity and all the difficulties and troubles and negative things going on here. And they look at us kind of like they're little brothers and sisters who need a little help because a lot of those species out there are so much more advanced than we are. They're much older, probably by thousands of years, maybe even millions. And so they've gone through a lot of the things that we have gone through here on Earth, or that we are going through. And they know that there's a better way to deal with a civilization. So therefore, because of their concern, some of these species are making a point of hybridizing certain human individuals so that those hybrids can really help here on Earth. The hybrids that I know all are very clear that they have a mission to help raise the consciousness of humanity. And it's very interesting about these hybrids because they are people who were born here from a regular mother in the regular fashion that we give birth. And they grow up in families and they look totally human. They look like their families and so forth. And so they can move through school systems and throughout society, very comfortably. Nobody looks at them oddly or anything. It's not as if there's an extraterrestrial being who looks really different walking among us. It's just one of our own people. But they happen to have been given extraterrestrial genetics, and that's why we call them hybrids.
Yeah.
So anyway, these people realize from a very, very early age that they have abilities that most of the people, well, all of the people around them don't have. I'm thinking mostly of their psychic abilities. They can do telepathic communication. They are empathic in the sense that they can be with a person and know what's going on inside that person physically, like what kind of difficulties they might be having. They're very psychic in all of the psychic abilities. Some of them are clairsentients. They just have a sense of knowing everything without being what we think of as know-it-alls. And they all have healing ability to actually do physical healing with other people. Some of these hybrids have specialties beyond that too, like communicating really accurately with animals. And so anyway, they have a range of psychic abilities. Some of them channel information from the other side. Some of them channel information from these space beings who have helped to hybridize them. And so they're just very quietly, modestly going about their lives, teaching private courses and having private appointments with people to counsel and advise them and help them to develop spiritually.
Yep.
So they're part of a really large movement. And you ask how many people, I don't know, but I am certainly sure that there are hybrid people all over the world.
With hundreds of hours of interviews and counselling with people who have had alien contact during their lives, Lamb is well qualified to make judgment on why an alien hybridization program is alive and well here on planet Earth. And that's coming up on the next episode of the Aliens Revealed Live Files, and you won't want to miss it. Thanks for being with us once again. Don't forget to check out our site at arlhub.com. That's arlhub.com. And as always, keep looking upwards and take care.